Brussels proposes a huge fine for Budapest in the face of insufficient corruption reforms.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the UN Security Council to condemn Russia's continuous bombardment of civilian infrastructure.
Russia's State Duma unanimously votes through a bill expanding restrictions on what they call gay propaganda to both adults and minors. Kosovo and Serbia reach an agreement which both countries hope could lead to a permanent solution over a row concerning the issuance of car license plates.
Beijing braces as parts of the capital go back into lockdown amid soaring COVID-19 cases, following violent clashes at a sealed iPhone factory earlier this week.
The European Commission is taking a hard line against the government of Viktor Orban, insisting on a massive cut of 20% to its EU funds over the next 7 years, equal to 7.5 billion euros. Brussels thinks that the 17 measures proposed by Hungary to tackle corruption are insufficient, and Budapest must do more if the money to be released. And the European Parliament agrees. On Thursday, MEPs adopted a resolution asking the EU not to release funds until there are real changes on the ground.
Well, they have made lots of promises, and yes, they have changed some laws, but we want to see that these changes actually work. We want to see that there is no more corruption in Hungary. We want to see that the rule of law is functioning. And yes, there are some signals in the right direction from the Hungarian government, but our assessment in the parliament is that we are very far from having the 17 measures fully implemented.
Viktor Orban's government has been criticized for democratic backsliding and systemic corruption for years now. As a result, the EU triggered the so-called rule of law mechanism against Hungary this year, the first time it's ever been used. This legal tool enables Brussels to suspend European funds. Hungary said with a series of new anti-corruption measures and with the overhaul of public tendering, they have met the European Commission's demands. And the Hungarian Minister for EU funds says Budapest will not lose a single cent.
What is important for us is that they talk about suspension. They are not taking away this money from us. In light of us delivering on our commitments, we could have the funds. When we made our commitments, we also presented a timeline about how we deliver. This was approved by the Commission, and they know very well that for this deadline on the 24th of November, we cannot deliver on everything.
The Hungarian economy is struggling and is relying heavily on EU funds. The EU member states will now decide on any punitive measures against Hungary in early December. Sándor Zsíros, Euronews, Brussels.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on the UN Security Council to pressure Russia into ceasing its airstrikes targeting his country's critical infrastructure. It follows Russia's latest attack on Ukraine's battered energy grid, robbing millions of power and water. Civilians have also died in these missile strikes. Volodymyr Zelensky urged the Council to back a resolution condemning any form of energy terror, but with Russia's veto, it is unlikely to prove effective.
I give the floor to the representative of...
Енергетичний терор – це аналог застосування зброї.
Energy terror is comparable to the use of weapons of mass destruction when we have the temperature below zero and scores of millions of people without energy supplies, without heating, without water. This is an obvious crime against humanity.
Без води. Це очевидний злочин проти людяності.
The U.S. accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of weaponizing winter to inflict immense suffering on the Ukrainian people. But Russia's ambassador rejected what he called reckless threats and ultimatums by Ukraine and its supporters in the West. Meanwhile, the EU's parliament has responded to the plight of Ukrainians. Its president, Roberta Metsola, has launched a Generators of Hope initiative. The campaign calls on European cities to donate power generators and transformers to help Ukrainians get through the harsh winter ahead. Ukrainian officials believe Vladimir Putin is hoping the misery of power cuts and unheated and unlit homes will lower support for continuing the war.
The Russian Duma has voted unanimously to tighten already strict restrictions on the LGBT+ community. The bill bars the promotion of what it calls gay propaganda to both minors and adults. That would include materials that discuss same-sex relationships or transgender issues. The Speaker of Parliament says it's part of a fight against Western ideas.
This is the best answer to US Secretary of State Blinken. Do not impose alien values on us. You destroyed yours, and we'll see how it all ends. Definitely it's Sodom, and that's the only word for it. And the US has become the center for Sodom in the world. Let the Americans live there, but don't bother us.
People in breach of the law face fines of more than 30,000 euros. For this activist, it puts more pressure on an already marginalized community.
If we cannot talk about ourselves, about our work, we cannot talk about what kind of help we provide. People cannot find out about it. Some may not even think about it. That such assistance is possible after the adoption of these laws.
Western countries have long deplored what they see as Russia's oppression of the LGBT+ community. In a gesture of solidarity and protest, the US and UK embassies in Moscow have previously flown rainbow flags alongside their own. A tentative agreement between Serbia and Kosovo, brokered by the EU, has been made over the number plate dispute between the two countries. Serbia will stop issuing car license plates with Kosovo's cities' denominations. In return, Pristina will cease further actions on the re-registration of vehicles.
The parties understand that all past dialogue agreements must be implemented. I will invite the parties in the coming days to discuss the next steps. I would like to point out that we also agreed that in case of obstruction by either party, the EU facilitator may terminate the process.
Pristina's banning of Serbian plates angered ethnic Serbs in the north of the country, who are fully supported by Belgrade.
The most important thing for us is that negotiations are ongoing. KM plates still remain. People who have KM plates, around 7,000 of them on the territory of Kosovo and Metohija, can continue to drive these cars without interference or fines.
Meanwhile, on the Kosovar side, there is also hope that a final agreement can be reached.
The issue should be considered seriously if we want to do our job. And the issue is the final proposal and agreement. It's not the time for small technical steps, but for a final solution, and I am fully committed to that.
This issue has already caused multiple flare-ups between the two sides this year. In a region with a troubled past, where identity is everything, even small symbols such as car license plates can disturb the fragile peace.
Millions of people in China are once again under collective quarantine as the country faces the new surge of the COVID-19 virus. In Beijing, workers in protective suits have installed metal barriers in some neighbourhoods where coronavirus cases have been detected. People can only go out to buy food or receive medical treatment, and to do so they must scan their health QR codes. In the industrial city of Changzhou, 6.6 million residents have been ordered to stay indoors for 5 days until COVID cases subside. Nerves are on edge following clashes between workers and law enforcement at the world's largest iPhone factory. The facility was sealed off earlier this month amid reports that COVID-positive staff were continuing to work without quarantining. Workers are calling on owners Foxconn to pay outstanding salaries and bonuses. Officials registered more than 31,000 infections on Thursday, a new record since cases were first recorded in Wuhan in 2019.